So at this point, ANSYS knows what is the mathematical model, the governing equations, boundary conditions, and initial conditions. And so let's get it to solve that approximately, get a numerical solution, and calculate the temperature at selected points and at selected times. And these times, it'll choose the time step automatically, so as we will see. So if I go to my demo, I made sure I have the right material properties. And then I also put in the initial condition for the mold. So I will come in here, and then I need to change the end time. So I played around with the end time. You can actually estimate the end time based on theory. I just changed it to 22,000 seconds. I just played around with it. So you have to run it for pretty long. And then I'll come here and say a prayer and hit solve. And since this is a nonlinear solution, I can come to solution information and see what's happening. What I did was, by default, it's going to be under solver output. It prints out a bunch of stuff. Let me get rid of that. And then I changed this to heat convergence. And as and you can track this as ANSYS is solving. So not good news. The prayer didn't help. It's like, hey, I didn't get convergence. So what's happening is it first tried to, the first time step it tried is 220 seconds, and it's like, oh, I'm not able to get a solution to the nonlinear algebraic equations iteratively through Newton-Raphson, if you're familiar with that. So then it decreased that, and this corresponds to this. So it did a bunch of iterations, like 6 or 7 iterations, and it said, hey, I'm not getting convergence, so let me try half of that. This must be 110. And then it didn't get convergence, and then it went down half again, and then when it had a smaller time step, it did get convergence. And then it looked like the next time step, but then after a while, it was like, I'm not getting convergence. So here I'll show you a voodoo technique. So you go under analysis settings, change under nonlinear controls, line search, change this to on. And then I think you can just hit solve, though you might want to clear generated data and start with a fresh slate and hit solve, and then come to solution information. And that way you can track the progress of the nonlinear iterative solution. So again, it started off with 220 and it had the same gymnastics, but then it was able to get convergence, next time step, and it seems like, okay, now it's getting convergence. And if these green lines are closer together, green vertical lines, it means that it's getting convergence for that time step in just like one iteration. So now you see it's gone up to 22,000 seconds. So the line search help with the convergence. And I don't want to get into the nonlinear theory, but essentially what this does is, if you're familiar with Newton-Raphson, from one iteration to the next, the predicted correction, it applies only part of that. Okay, so at this point, we should have the, if I go to my PowerPoint slide, we should have the temperature at our nodes at the time steps that ANSYS has come up with, which we kind of get an idea of the time step, but we can take a closer look at get what the time steps are in the post-processing step. So we'll do that next, and you can save your project.